We are live. Hello and welcome, everyone. Good evening. We are yet again here ready to present another webinar on behalf of positivity. Today's topic is breaking trauma bonds in relationship, something that has been trending very recently. We have come to know about this topic. Some of us are reading about it, some of us are talking about it. Trauma bonds as a term are quite something that we are recently getting familiar with. So, what is it? What is it that makes us get trauma bonded? How does that affect us as partners? Does it only happen within a couple? Or can it be a bond which is observed between parents and children, between two individuals who are parents and married, between individuals who are not married but couples? Is it something that can exist within professional boundaries, professional relationships? All of these answers we will be gathering in today's discussion, and we will also learn strategies and insightful techniques to deal with the same. So, as we begin, I would also like to take this opportunity to introduce Positivity to all of you. We are a Singapore headquartered mental health organization trying to make quality mental health care affordable and reachable to all of you. We are operational currently across different parts of the world, including the Middle East, Southeast Asia, and India. We have experts across various parts of the country and the world as well. They bring their expertise and world of specialization for all of you, accumulated together under the same roof of positivity. Towards the end of the session, our speaker will give you a quick run through on the website and how to get your bookings done. So you can stay tuned and observe the same. As we begin, I also invite Ms. Jigisha Patil, who is our speaker today. Hi, Jigisha. You have been associated with us for quite some time as a consultant and as webinar facilitator, and we are absolutely honored and happy to have you back with us. Ms. Jigisha is a counseling psychologist. She has 7 years of experience. She deals with adolescents, adults, couples, and addiction, behavioral conditions, and a lot of cognitive based treatments she brings in with the expertise that she holds. She also works with the armed forces. She has contributed majorly during Operation Sindoor. We all are quite grateful to your service, Ms. Jigisha, and we look forward to learning from you.
Thank you so much, Shotadipa, for that warm introduction. And also a heartfelt thank you to the entire team of Positivity for organizing this session and creating a space for conversations that are, deeply needed. Yet it is very difficult to talk about openly. So thank you so
Absolutely.
much once again.
And this is something that we also found very relevant during our search optimization analytics. A lot of people have been searching on this topic. A lot of people want to know more. We have some of the experts already talking about it out in social media and on LinkedIn. So we thought maybe providing a detailed discussion on the same for 1 hour. I think that's not a very short time. That can give us a quite comprehensive overview of understanding how to identify it and how to go about treating that.
Right, and I'm genuinely happy to speak about trauma bonds today because it tells me something important already, that conversations about relationships, emotional well being, attachment, and healing are becoming more honest these days. And honestly, they need to become so important. Many people today are functioning normally on the outside while emotionally carrying a lot of confusion, anxiety, emotional exhaustion, and heartbreak internally, especially in relationships. And for those, again, good afternoon, everyone. For those who don't know me, I am Mrs. Jigisha Patil, and I have completed my master's in psychology along with a professional diploma in psychotherapy, where I was trained in 12 different therapeutic approaches. And over the years, I have had the opportunity to work with children, parents, adults, couples, and families within the army community, and which has allowed me to closely observe the emotional realities people carry behind closed doors: anxiety, suppression, attachment wounds, loneliness, emotional dependence, communication breakdowns, you can say resilience, and the deep human need to feel emotionally safe. And one pattern that I repeatedly found people struggling with was this, that why is this so hard to let go of relationships that are hurting us so much? And logically, people often know that this relationship is, draining me, this person is inconsistent, this is affecting my peace, and yet emotionally they still feel attached, sometimes so deeply attached that even one message changes their mood. There is one moment of affection that brings back some hope in them, and suddenly weeks of pain feels forgotten. And many people begin blaming themselves for this. They think that, why am I so emotionally weak? Why can't I move on in the relationship? Or, why do I keep going back to the same toxic relationship again and again? But psychology gives us a much deeper understanding of what may actually be happening beneath the surface, right? So, we are going to talk about it in detail today.
You can get started, take it forward. If you have any slides, you can pull them up. We have also enabled the chat for audience to bring in their thoughts and questions. We also have some of them joining through YouTube, but they won't be able to interact. But whatever we can keep posting, or we can keep sharing during today's talk. Over to you,
Right.
Jikisha.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, so sometimes it is not simply attachment in relationships, right? Sometimes it is not even love in the healthiest sense. Sometimes it is trauma bond, right? And today, through psychological perspectives, relatable real life examples, and therapeutic understanding and interactive conversations, we are going to explore what trauma bonds really are and why they feel so intense, why they become so emotionally addictive, and most importantly, how healthy and emotional freedom are possible. So, have you ever noticed how some people struggle to accept a compliment? If someone says you did a great job, and instead of saying thank you, they immediately respond with, no, not really, or this wasn't that good, or anyone could have done it, or perhaps you would have done that yourself. Now, think about this moment that nobody teaches us to reject compliments. Nobody sits us down as children and says that when someone says something nice about you, make sure you don't believe them. And yet, many people do exactly that. Why does this happen? Because our experiences shape what feels familiar, what feels believable and safe. So, if someone grows up feeling constantly criticized, appreciation may feel uncomfortable. If someone grows up believing that they have to earn love, unconditional kindness, or may feel confusing that this is, I don't understand or I don't associate with unconditional love. What feels normal to us isn't always what is healthy for us, right? So, have you ever noticed how some people feel guilty when they're resting, especially mothers? The moment they rest for a minute or so, they feel extremely guilty. They finish a long day, they sit down to relax, and within minutes, they're thinking that I should be doing something productive, or I haven't done enough today, or I shouldn't be sitting over here, I must be doing something. So nobody's forcing them to work. Yet, this feeling of relaxing is uncomfortable. Again, why? Because over time, they may have learned that their worth comes from being productive. And what feels familiar often feels normal. And even when it is exhausting, it is going to feel extremely normal. The same thing can happen in relationship. So don't worry, this is not going to feel like a very heavy psychology lecture today. We are going to keep this honest, relatable, be reflective, and maybe even a little humorous at times. I'll try to do that. So, if we cannot laugh a little at our own emotional patterns, healing sometimes becomes much harder, right? So, yeah, before we begin, I'm sure Shotadipa has already given you a brief introduction to the positivity platform and the wonderful work it does in making mental health support and emotional well being resources more accessible. I'll also be sharing a little more about how you can use the platform and stay connected for continued support to the end of the today's webinar. For now, let's dive into our topic and begin understanding trauma bonds and the psychology behind them. So let me quickly walk you through what we are going to explore today in webinar. because my intention is not just for the session to feel informative. I want it to feel insightful, relatable, and genuinely useful for your real life. So today we are going to understand what are trauma bonds, the impact it has on our relationships, signs that you might be in a trauma bond, how to break this cycle, of course, healing and rebuilding and moving towards healthy love. The psychology behind trauma bonding, like including the concepts like attachment theory, intermittent reinforcement, emotional conditioning, nervous system responses, and why inconsistency can become emotionally addictive. So we will also be discussing some examples, some case studies, and behavioral pattern that we see in our everyday life. And towards the end, we will have a FAQ session and some reflective segment where I'll address some of the most common questions that people have asked me on the Instagram. So this is going to be a very honest and interactive conversation, and I really encourage you to listen to this session without judgment, but with curiosity and compassion for yourself, because sometimes awareness itself becomes the first step towards healing. So before we understand trauma bonds, we first need to understand one very important word, that is trauma. So what is trauma? Now, the moment people hear the word trauma, many immediately think of something that is extreme, right? Something that is very dramatic, something very visible. Because nowadays we have been hearing this word quite often, that don't instigate my trauma. But psychologically, trauma is not only about what happened to you. Sometimes trauma is also about what kept happening to you, or what was missing, what was emotionally overwhelming for you, or what your mind and body were not equipped to process at that time. Sometimes trauma isn't that one dramatic event. Sometimes it is the child who comes home excited to share something from school, but repeatedly hears that, not now, I'm busy. Sometimes it's about growing up feeling that love and affection depend on performances like good grades, good behavior, meeting expectations. And sometimes it is even being afraid to express our sadness, anger, or disappointment, because every emotional conversation turns into criticism or conflict. Sometimes it's constantly checking people's mood before speaking, because you never know how they will react. Or even it's like hearing things like, you're too sensitive, don't make such a big deal out of it, or why can't you be more like your sibling. And after hearing these statements again and again, a person may start to believe them, that my feelings don't matter, or I need to do something extraordinary to earn love, or I have to work hard to be accepted. And these beliefs often don't stay in childhood. They quietly follow people into adulthood and into their relationships as well. And the important thing to understand is that two people can go through the same situation and experience it very differently emotionally, because trauma is less about the event itself and more about how deeply the nervous system is going to experience it. Suppose one child grows up in a home where emotions are openly discussed. Another child grows up hearing that, you should stop crying, you're too sensitive, you don't talk back, or good children don't behave like this. Now, physically, everything may look normal from outside. There may be food, education, routine, stability. But emotionally, that child slowly learns that.
ठीक है बेटा बैठो ना नो प्रॉब्लम ये तो बता देना इसके साथ ना मैं कहीं और जा रहा हूँ कल को लेंगे ना मैं
Yeah, okay. But emotionally, what happens? The child slowly learns that my emotions are inconvenient. I should suppress my feelings. I must earn approval. And these beliefs quietly follow them into adulthood and so into their relationships. Imagine a little girl whose parent is loving sometimes, but distant, unpredictable, or sometimes emotionally unavailable at other times. So the child never knows, will I receive this affection today or rejection? Now, what happens psychologically? The child becomes hyper alert. She starts over analyzing moods, overthinking reactions, or trying harder to gain that love and reassurance. And years later, as an adult, she may unknowingly feel attracted to emotionally inconsistent relationships, because now her nervous system has learned the same, that love always feel uncertain. not because she enjoys that pain that she experiences in the relationship, but because uncertainty is something that feels familiar to her. And familiarity can sometimes feel safer than the unknown. This is why many people stay in emotionally unhealthy relationships and still think that, okay, I love them so much, I can continue. Because trauma affects attachment, and attachment affects relationships. Sometimes people are not attached to the person alone. Sometimes people are not holding on because the relationship is making them happy. They're holding on because they're still waiting for the relationship to become what they hoped it would be. They're holding on to the rare good moments, the promises, the memories, to the feelings they get when, after a period of distance or hurt, the other person suddenly becomes loving again. And somewhere deep down, they're holding on to basically the hope that this time they'll finally feel truly loved and chosen. And this is where things become very complex emotionally. So, have you ever noticed how some people panic intensely after small situations? Suppose there is a delayed reply, or there is a change in tone of the person that you're talking to, or if a person gives you a short response, or if there is a disagreement. Logically, they know that, okay, this is not a huge issue, but emotionally, their body reacts strongly. Now, why this happens? This happens because trauma does not always live in logic, it lives in the nervous system. Sometimes your body remembers the emotional experiences even when your mind is trying to stay rational. And this is important because many people invalidate themselves by saying that maybe I'm overreacting, maybe I'm overthinking. But the reaction is connected something that is much deeper emotionally, and this is not weakness or this is not drama. This is basically a conditioning. And when unresolved emotional wounds they meet inconsistent relationships, that is where trauma bonds can begin forming very strongly, right? So now that we understand what actually trauma is, let's finally talk about the main topic of today's webinar. That is, what exactly is trauma bond? Now, psychologically, a trauma bond is an unhealthy emotional attachment that develops through repeated cycles of pain and emotional reward. Now, let me remove this complicated language for a second. So, basically, a trauma bond happens when the same person who hurts you also becomes the same person who comforts you. And because of this cycle, the relationship starts becoming emotionally addictive. It is not necessarily healthy, it is not necessarily peaceful, not safe, but it is addictive, right? Now imagine you're in a relationship where everything seems fine for a few days. You're talking regularly, you're feeling connected, and things feel secure. Then suddenly the person becomes distant. Their messages become short, they stop calling, they seem irritated or unavailable, and you have no idea why this is happening. So you spend days and days wondering, did I do something wrong? Or are they losing interest in me? Or why are they treating me differently? These are all feelings of anxiety, hurt, and emotionally unsettled. And then what happens? Just when you're reaching your limit of moving on, they call you back, they message you, they apologize, and they tell you how much you mean to them. They say that they've been stressed, that they miss you, and that they don't want to lose you. What happens in this moment? The relief feels enormous. The anxiety all of a sudden disappears. You feel connected again and you feel special again. And because that relief feels so powerful, it becomes easy to focus on the good moment and forget how painful the previous days made you feel like, right? And when this pattern keeps repeating, that is, when there is distance, there is hurt, and then there is relief, and then there is closeness, and then distance again. The attachment can become incredibly strong, even when the relationship itself is causing distress. You will feel relief in that immediate moment. The relief is going to make you emotionally powerful because after so much of emotional pain, that small affection starts feeling huge. And slowly, your brain is going to register this attachment, not just to the person, but also to the emotional cycle. This is why many people in trauma bonds say things like, I won't give up on this relationship because when things are good, they're really good. Or nobody understands me like this person does. Or I know they hurt me, but I can't leave them. And I hope that things will go back to how they were initially. Imagine someone keeps making you feel emotionally insecure. Sometimes they give you love, attention, affection, reassurance, and other times they disappear. They become cold, they invalidate your feelings, they make you question yourself or emotionally distance themselves. Now your mind constantly is on the alert. You keep on thinking like, did I do something wrong? How does I make sense out of these things? And when the texts come back, suddenly your mood is changing. This is basically your emotional high after emotional pain creates, and this is again a very strong attachment, psychological attachment, right? And it is eventually grow stronger and stronger. Now, suppose there is a child whose parent is loving one day and angry on the next day, emotionally unavailable sometimes, like and emotionally like available sometimes and emotionally distant other times. The child grows up constantly trying to earn their emotional safety. As an adult, they may unknowingly feel attracted again to the relationships, and they will chase love, they will try to prove their worth and try to seek reassurance. And this pattern, whatever we have learned growing up, continues in the adulthood. There will be internal conflict. That is what makes trauma bond so emotionally exhausting. Another very common thing that we notice in people with unresolved emotional wounds or trauma bonding pattern is difficulty receiving healthy love and appreciation. Like at the starting of the webinar, I say how they feel uncomfortable taking compliments. Like because all their life they've been unseen and they feel that this is something new and it immediately makes them uncomfortable. So emotional struggle makes them more comfortable than the ease, right? So this is basically trauma bond. Now you might wonder that why is it so important for us to understand trauma bonds? Why are conversations like these becoming so relevant today? Because many people are living inside these patterns without even realizing it. They think that this is just love or this is how relationships are, fights happen in relationships, or maybe I'm too emotional, or maybe I need to adjust more, I am somewhere who is lagging behind in this. And slowly emotional suffering becomes normalized. Suddenly trauma bonds is more important because like understanding trauma bonds is more important because awareness changes the way we interpret our experiences. The moment people understand that, wait, this is not just love, this is an unhealthy emotional pattern, there is going to be an internal shift. They stop blaming themselves so harshly. And honestly, many people spend years thinking that why can't I move on from this toxic relationship? I know this is toxic for me. I know my partner doesn't respect me, but I keep going back to them. Why do I keep going back to them? Or why do I miss them? Even if they're hurting me so much, or why do I feel addicted to this relationship? So without realizing there is an actual psychological reasons behind these emotional experiences, people don't understand trauma bonding. They often tolerate these emotional mistreatment for a long period of time. They abandon their own needs, they lose their self-worth, they become emotionally dependent, they are going to normalize inconsistency, and they're going to disconnect themselves emotionally. And over a period of time, this is going to affect confidence, decision making skills, emotional regulation, your work life balance, your friendships, your physical health, and even your own identity. Some people, they become so emotionally consumed by the relationship that their entire mood starts depending on other person's behavior. One message can make their day, one cold response can ruin their day. And emotionally, that becomes extremely exhausting. It also becomes important because trauma bonds can quietly pass from one generation to another generation. It is important for mothers to heal themselves. So if you are somebody who have recently conceived or are planning to conceive, Make sure that you heal yourself before passing on such traumas to your child. A child growing up watching unhealthy attachment patterns may unknowingly normalize it. They're going to imitate what you are going through, right? Maybe it is your emotional instability, lack of boundaries, silent suffering, emotional chasing, or be inconsistency in relationships. They're all going to imitate all these things. It is going to affect the next generation as well. And later, they may recreate similar patterns in adulthood without consciously realizing it. So, understanding trauma bonds is not only about relationships or improvising it is about our emotional awareness. It is about understanding why we react the way we do, why certain relationships feel so addictive, why peace sometimes feels so unfamiliar, and how unresolved emotional wounds shape our choices. Most importantly, understanding trauma bonds is actually going to help people realize something very powerful, that you can love somebody deeply and still recognize that this relationship is going to be unhealthy for you. And I'm not talking this limited to the couples, it can be with anybody, right? Both things can exist together, that you love somebody deeply, but at the same time, it is not healthy for you. And sometimes healing begins not when feelings disappear, it begins with awareness. So it is important for us to understand what trauma bond is and how it is affecting us. Now, bonding is not a random term. There are very strong psychological mechanisms behind why people become emotionally attached to painful relationships. And once we understand these concepts, many behaviors suddenly start making sense. You stop asking what is wrong with me, and your mindset is going to change that this is what my mind and nervous system have learned. So let me break down some important psychological theories in the simplest way possible. So we'll start with the first theory, that is the attachment theory. Now, why familiar doesn't always mean healthy? Like, imagine two children. The first child grows up in a home where they know what to expect. So when they are upset, somebody's there to listen to them. When they make mistakes, they're corrected, but they're still loved. When they are scared, there is somebody to comfort them. So your love feels predictable, right? No matter what they do, they know as a result they will be loved. Now imagine the other child. Some days their parent is warm and affectionate. On other days they're distant, they're irritable or emotionally unavailable. The child never quite knows which version they are going to get there. So instead of relaxing into love, they learn to monitor it. They become experts at reading facial expressions. They notice the tone changes that happens immediately. They learn how to keep people happy. Years later, that child becomes an adult. You must have seen that simply by observing a parent's reaction, like, okay, today my father looks extremely angry. I think I should not tell him what is going on in my life. So this is how they start reading the expressions and tones. And when they meet someone who is inconsistent, who is emotionally unavailable, or difficult to read, something, that is strangely, that feels familiar because growing up, they've seen all this around them, not something that is comfortable and familiar, right? And sometimes we mistake familiarity for love. So even now, this may happen in the opposite way also. Sometimes it may happen that the person is genuinely loving you, conditionally loving you, but then you start finding this boring, right? Because there is no inconsistency. So you may not be getting attracted towards such people. You will attract people who are inconsistent. It's like wearing an old pair of shoes that hurt your feet. They're uncomfortable, but since you have worn them for so long that they feel normal and you're okay with it. That's how attachment patterns work. So many people aren't attracted to what is healthiest, they're attracted to what feels familiar. So basically, this is the attachment theory. Next theory is the intermittent reinforcement. So why we keep waiting for the next good moment, right? Now there is a fight, you keep on waiting for like something nice will happen. Now, have you ever noticed how exciting it feels when someone finally replies after ignoring you for 2, 3 days? Suddenly, that one message feels incredibly special, not necessarily in couples, but in work life as well. Now, compare that to someone who consistently checks in, communicates absolutely in clear language what they want. They treat you well every day. Oddly enough, the first situation often is going to create that stronger emotional intensity. Why? Because you're standing at a, like, it's something like standing in front of a vending machine. Every time you press the button, a chocolate falls down, right? Now pretty soon you stop thinking about it. Now imagine another vending machine. Sometimes it will give you a chocolate, sometimes it will not give you a chocolate, it will give you something else. Suddenly you're pressing the button again and again that maybe this time I'll get a chocolate. So relationships can work the same way. The affection becomes unpredictable. One day they are distant, the next day they are loving. One week you're questioning yourself or everything that is happening around you. The next week you're planning your future together and your brain starts chasing the next reward. Okay? Not because you're weak, but because humans are wired to keep hoping when the reward feels just close enough. It's almost there. So that is nothing but the intermittent reinforcement. There is a positive moment, there is an unpredictable withdrawal, there is again a hope and expectation, and as a result, this attachment becomes stronger. And that is why, even if it is toxic, you still feel connected to this person. Next is cognitive dissonance. So, one psychological concept that helps explain trauma bond is this. Okay, in simple term, cognitive dissonance happens when two conflicting beliefs exist at the same time. Now, imagine your best friend says that your boyfriend constantly ignores, like, you, or makes you cry, dismisses your feelings, and makes you question yourself again and again. Why are you still with him? And what will be the response? The response will be no, no, he's also an incredibly loving person. He's an amazing human being. And suddenly, things become even more complicated because now there are two realities at the same time, that this person is hurting you, but at the same time, the person is loving you. Now, the human mind struggles with contradiction. We naturally want things to make sense. So, instead of accepting both realities, the mind often starts creating explanations to reduce this discomfort, right? So we tell ourselves that okay, maybe he's stressed, that is why he's doing it, or maybe my friend didn't mean this, or maybe he will improve himself, or maybe loving version, like this is the real version of it. Over time, these explanations help us stay emotionally connected even when we are being hurt. Not again, not because we are weak, but because our minds are trying to resolve a painful conflict. And they will always choose what is the best for them, right? And this cyclic process is called as the cycle of abuse, right? Many unhealthy relationships follow a repeating cycle. It usually begins with a tension. You sense that something is wrong, communication changes, you start feeling anxious, and you begin walking on eggshells, I would say. And then comes the hurtful incident. Maybe there is criticism, maybe there is rejection, emotional withdrawal, manipulation, or conflict. You feel devastated, and you again question yourself, that you wonder whether the relationship should continue or should I end this relationship. And just about when you're there to reach your limit to break up, or you discontinue or break that bond, they come and they apologize. They become affectionate. They promise things will be different. They remind you of how you fell in love with them in the first place. And suddenly that hope comes back and everything starts feeling better. This cyclic process is the cycle of abuse. The cycle keeps on repeating. There is tension, pain, relief, hope, right? And over time, many people discover that they are no longer attached only to the person, but they are also attached to the emotional relief that follows the pain, and they keep looking forward to it. Now, because if these patterns that we have learned are so painful, they are so, problematic. The best part is they can also be unlearned. And that is where the healing begins. But what impact does these things have in our daily life? They don't just stay inside the relationship, right? They slowly start taking up space in our other parts of life too. It happens so gradually that you don't even notice it at first. From outside, everything may look normal. You're going to work, you're taking care of responsibilities, you're meeting your friends, you're posting pictures, but internally there is a huge amount of emotional energy that is being spent on that one relationship. Imagine trying to use your phone all day with 20% battery. Technically, it still works, right? But everything feels harder. That's often what trauma bonds do to people emotionally. Now, suppose, have you ever been in a meeting, you're reading a book, watching a movie, or having dinner with friends, but your mind keeps drifting back to the same person? You're physically present over there, but mentally, you're replaying conversations. Why did they sound different yesterday? Why haven't they replied me? Did I upset them? What if they've pulled away? What if there is somebody else in their life? And the relationship starts renting space in your mind all day long. And eventually your mood, it starts depending on them too. If there is a one loving message, your day feels lighter. If there is a cold response, your entire mood changes. It's almost like handing someone else the remote control to your emotional state. Over a period of time, something else happens. You stop noticing your own needs, and the focus slowly shifts from what do I need to what do I need to do to keep this relationship okay. And that's when people often start losing pieces of themselves. Maybe they stop pursuing hobbies they once enjoyed, they withdraw from friends, they stop speaking up about things that bother them. Not because they consciously choose to, but because so much of energy is going towards managing the relationship, the body feels it too. Many people don't connect their headaches, their poor sleep, constant fatigue, stomach discomfort, or even restlessness to emotional stress. Nowadays, the word cortisol levels is trending, right? But like people have gained weight, and the nutritionists or the doctors are saying that it's not because like all your reports are normal, it is because of the cortisol levels that you're not able to lose weight. It is the tension that your body is holding. Why? When the nervous system spends months or years anticipating that the next emotional high or low, it rarely gets a chance to fully relax. And perhaps one of the most concerning things is that people slowly begin adjusting to things they never thought they would tolerate, right? What once felt so hurtful starts feeling normal. What once felt unacceptable becomes something that they explain away. And little by little, they begin questioning themselves. Instead of questioning the behavior, they say that I'm too sensitive or I'm expecting too much. All relationships are like this. That's often the point where self trust starts eroding. Now, another interesting thing that happens during healing is when someone has been riding an emotional roller coaster for a long time. Being calm can also feel unfamiliar. A healthy, consistent person may initially seem boring, not because healthy love is boring, but because the nervous system has become accustomed to this intensity. It's a bit like living next to a noisy railway track for years and years, and when the noise finally stops, the silence can start feeling strange. But it will feel strange at first. Many people become increasingly isolated, not because they don't have people around them, but because they're so tired of explaining that, or that because people keep on asking them, people observe, they ask, why don't you just leave? So they're just tired of defending the relationships, so they keep on more and more like struggling with themselves, and they isolate themselves, and eventually things like suicide happens, and we don't know that. Feel that okay, this person was okay, what happened all of a sudden? The relationship is gradually becomes the source of pain, and also the place that you go looking for comfort. And that's very exhausting place for anyone to live emotionally. There was a young woman who described her day to me like this, that she would wake up and first thing she did was check her phone. If there was a message from her partner, she used to feel calm. If there wasn't, she immediately felt anxious. At work, she found herself, rereading the same old emails or messages because part of her mind was wondering whether he was upset with her. So she kept on going through the last conversations again and again to see whether he is affectionate or something bad happened. And in the evening, after a few days, she used to receive some texts again, and her mood used to improve instantly. And this cycle kept on going again and again. This relationship wasn't just affecting her love life, it was affecting her concentration, it was affecting her sleep, confidence, and overall peace of mind. So, before we move ahead with the healing part, I want you to do a small self check to see whether you are trauma bonded. Now, as I share these signs, don't think about someone else. Think about your own relationship. Think about how you feel on most days. Because trauma bonds are actually tricky. They don't feel painful all the time. In fact, if they did, it would have been easy to leave sooner, right? Breakup would have been easy, or uh, breaking the contact or disconnecting with the person would have been easier. The confusion comes from the fact that alongside the pain, there are also moments of love, laughter, affection, connection, and a lot of hope. And sometimes it is that hope that keeps people holding on. So, how do you know whether you're experiencing a healthy emotional attachment or it's a trauma bond? First and the foremost is you keep going back, even after deciding that you're done with this. So, have you ever had a moment in your life where you said that that's it, I can't do this anymore? Maybe you cried all night, maybe you promised yourself that things would be different, and the next day there is a sweet message and you reconcile. It's like trying to quit a TV series that frustrates you every episode, but every now and then gives you one amazing episode that makes you believe that it's getting better. It's something like that. Second sign is that your peace depends on how they are behaving. Imagine waking up in a great mood and then you notice they have been online but they haven't replied. Suddenly your mind starts spinning. What happened? What did I do wrong? So this is a few hours later, again they text you and your mood becomes normal. That's a sign worth paying attention to. Sign number three is you find yourself constantly making excuses for them. Like if a friend described the same relationship to you, you might immediately see the red flags. But when it's your relationship, the story often sounds like, okay, they have had a difficult past, they are stressed, they don't mean it, they love me, they're just struggling right now. Empathy is a wonderful thing, but if you are always understanding their behavior while ignoring how it is affecting you, something important may be getting overlooked. Sign number four is you feel responsible for fixing everything. You start believing that if I communicate better, if I become more patient, if I love them enough, or if I don't react, then maybe things will finally improve. Sign number five is you're holding on to who they could be. That is, many people aren't attached to the relationship they have, they are attached to the relationship that they hope that will become one day. Okay, they remember the amazing first few months, beautiful promises and good things, and they keep on hoping that they will come true. Sign number six is that setting boundaries feels terrifying because you know something is bothering you. You know this isn't okay. Yet saying it out, like saying this out loud, feels scary because you're scared that this person will leave you. And that is why you forgive them quickly. You accept things that you normally wouldn't accept, right? Sign number seven would be your emotions feel like a roller coaster. One day you feel deeply loved, the next day you feel anxious and insecure. Sign number eight is you don't feel like yourself anymore. Maybe you used to have hobbies, you met friends regularly, you laughed more, you had dreams, you had plans that had nothing to do with the relationship, but somewhere This relationship is affecting each and every goal that you had in life. Sign number 9 would be leaving feels harder than staying. This is the biggest clue. You know you're hurting, you know you're unhappy, you know you're disrespected, you know things aren't changing, but yet the thought of leaving that person feels unbearable. Not because the relationship is healthy, again because the attachment has become toxic. So if you recognized yourself in any of these signs, please remember this, that it doesn't mean that you're weak, it doesn't mean that you're foolish, and it certainly doesn't mean that you're incapable of healthy love. It simply means your heart, your attachment system, and your nervous system may have been stuck in a cycle that feels familiar. And the beautiful thing about patterns is that anything that is learned can be unlearned, anything that is conditioned can be healed, and awareness is often where healing begins. Now, the important part of today's session, that how to heal from trauma bonds. How do I stop going back to the same toxic patterns? How do I heal emotionally, or how do I move forward? And the first thing I want you to know is this, that healing from a trauma bond is possible. It may not happen overnight, it may not be linear. Some days you will feel strong, and other days you may miss the person deeply. But healing doesn't mean that you never think about them again. Healing doesn't mean that no longer control that like there is no longer control on your emotions, your decisions, or your sense of self-worth. One helpful way to understand healing is, I'll give you a 5 steps, simple steps uh, for your journey, healing journey. We can say that a journey from, surviving to thriving this, right? Now that we have understood all of this, the step number 1 will be awareness. See the patterns clearly. Healing always begins with awareness. Let's take an example. Let's name a girl Priya. Okay. Every time her partner becomes distant, she feels anxious and she feels unsettled. Then suddenly they become affectionate again, and she feels relief, that excitement and hope. Now, for years, she thought that this must be love because I feel so much. But one day she realizes that something important has happened. I am spending more time recovering from this relationship than enjoying it. And that moment changes everything. This is awareness. Okay. How, instead of asking, how do I work? How do I make this work? What is this relationship doing to me emotionally? You cannot heal a pattern that you refuse to see. So, awareness is not about blaming anyone, it is about seeing the reality. So, step number 1 is awareness. Step number 2, self compassion. That is, you have to stop fighting yourself. Once people recognize a trauma bond, many become their own harshest critic. They ask, oh my God, how did I stay so long? Why didn't I leave earlier? Or what was wrong with me? Now, but imagine a friend came to you and shared the same story. What would you tell them? Would you tell them that you're foolish? No, right? You'll tell them that you were trying your best, you wanted love, you hoped that things would improve. So start growing from it. Healing grows in compassion, and shame is going to keep us stuck. So let go. Be like compassionate towards yourself. Step number 3 is boundaries. You need to protect your peace. Now, Priya, who was noticing something, that with the awareness, every time she starts feeling stronger, her ex sends her a message that, hey, I have been thinking about you. How about we get back together again? Suddenly, the confusion returns, the anxiety returns, the hope returns, the cycle starts again, and it is going to start again. So she makes a difficult decision in her life. She draws a boundary. She says that no matter what happens, I will stop responding. Not because I am angry, not because I'm trying to hurt anyone, but because now I have finally decided something important. Boundaries are not punishment, boundaries are protection. Think about it like a fence around a garden. The fence doesn't exist because the flowers are bad, the fence exists because the flowers are valuable. Your peace deserves that protection too. Step number 4 is heal and rebuild. Try to reconnect with yourself. One of the hidden effects of trauma bonds is that people slowly lose pieces of themselves. Now, what will Priya do? Priya will realize that she has stopped painting or she has stopped meeting her friends. She stopped doing things that once brought joy to her. Now she starts rebuilding them, not dramatically, step by step. Maybe she'll join a class, or maybe she'll call an old friend. She might start with a small painting or art project right away. Because healing isn't only about letting someone go, it's about finding yourself again. Step number 5 is seek support. Don't carry it alone because healing can feel lonely, especially when your mind keeps replaying the good memories. Sometimes we need someone outside the situation to help us see clearly what things are. Okay? Maybe if Priya is saying that maybe it wasn't that bad, she needs somebody to tell her that how anxious that situation made you feel, right? So it can be your friends, family, support group, or a therapist, because healing becomes easier when you are not carrying the weight alone. Step number next is grow forward. You need to create a different future for yourself. Start journaling. You write down how your future, what message you would like to give your future self, and work on it, right? So try to follow these steps for healing. And many people, they know that therapy helps, but how does therapist help you in this? They will help you understand your pattern, right? We know that we are not supposed to go back to this toxic relationship, but the why behind it is unclear, right? And as long as this why is unclear, you won't be able to move forward, and therapist is going to help you understand the why, right? So second thing when where they can help you is by helping you separate love from survival, because people in trauma bonds often mistake emotional intensity for love. They may never say that I've never felt this strongly about anyone, but when a psychologist explores the relationship with them, they may notice something interesting. The strongest emotions often appear after conflict, rejection, withdrawal, or uncertainty. They're going to help you understand these patterns. They are going to help you manage the emotional withdrawal. One reason trauma bonds are so difficult to break is because leaving can feel emotionally painful. People will experience anxiety, obsessive thinking. There will be urges to contact the person again. There will be loneliness, panic, emotional cravings. And psychologist is going to help you navigate these moments, right? They're going to help you get comfort, validation, connection, and reassurance within yourself. They will help you rebuild your self-worth, because trauma bonds damages your self-worth in subtle ways. People start questioning themselves. They feel that they're not good enough. They tolerate things that they never thought they would tolerate, right? So to heal from that, you need somebody to guide you properly. Often people discover that these beliefs are old wounds that are speaking, not the objective truth. And as self worth will grow, these unhealthy relationships often lose some of their power. Therapists are also going to teach you healthier relationship skills. Many people know what they don't want in relationships, but they aren't always sure that what healthy relationships also look like. Therapy can help people learn such things like setting boundaries, expressing your needs clearly, or handling conflict respectively. Also, recognizing the red flags, receiving love without constantly fearing loss, right? They're also going to provide you a safe place to be honest. Sometimes trauma bonds also are associated with physical abuse, right? This happens in marriages wherein they keep on taking that abuse again and again, and the next day the husband comes back lovingly and says sorry, she accepts it. So somebody needs to know the difference between what is legally right and legally wrong. So psychologists are going to help you find a way out of this, and they are going to provide you a long term support, because our goal is not perfection. The goal is building a healthier relationship with yourself, and this will happen step after step, right? Now there are some frequently asked questions. I'll take few commonly asked that are: how do I know if I am trauma bonded? are just emotionally attached. So, a healthy emotional attachment may involve love, care, and emotional dependence to some extent, but it still allows you space for peace, boundaries, individuality, emotional safety, and consistency, I would say. So, trauma bonds, on the other hand, usually feel very emotionally consuming. So, it's you ask yourself honestly, does this relationship mostly make me feel calm, respected, emotionally secure, or emotionally free? That will answer your question. How long does it take to heal? So there is no fixed timeline for this because healing completely depends on your emotional awareness, your support systems, your nervous system healing, your attachment pattern, also the self work or the dedication you're showing towards healing or steps that you're taking, the depth of emotional conditioning also that is involved. So for some people healing may take months and months, for others it may take longer. And healing is rarely linear. By linear I mean that some days you will feel strong and there will be highs and lows also, right? Can I heal while still in the relationship? This completely depends and entirely depends whether the relationship itself is genuinely changing or not. Okay, healing becomes extremely difficult if the same harmful patterns keep on continuing, boundaries are repeatedly ignored, emotional manipulation continues, or there is no accountability. Right. So, if you genuinely feel that both of you as partners are toxic for each other, or you're causing that trauma for each other, you may come for a couple counseling as well. Maybe there is some communication gaps that needs to be improved, so that can be worked, and through like couple therapy also we can work on that. Do I need therapy to heal? Okay, so not everyone heals in exactly same way. Some people heal through strong support systems. Some people heal through self-awareness, healthy environments, reflection, education, um or consistent emotional work with a person. But therapy can make the healing process a lot safer, healthier, and more structured, especially when trauma bonds are involved, because there are deep pain and wound that are there that needs to be healed. So if you are Googling about it and trying to find a solution, I think that won't be appropriate. Not all medicines heal fever. Like the fever are also because of the underlying root cause behind fever is different. So every time having paracetamol won't help. You need to analyze the root cause behind it. So will I ever feel like myself again? So, yes, absolutely. And honestly, many people eventually feel even more connected to themselves after healing. So, right now, if you are emotionally exhausted, confused, anxious, or even disconnected from yourself, it may feel difficult to imagine peace, but healing slowly helps people reconnect with their confidence, emotional stability. It will help you bring back your identity, your boundaries, and you will enjoy. It is going to make you feel uncomfortable, let me tell you, while setting boundaries and doing all this. It is because you're stepping outside your comfort zone. It is going to cause a lot of discomfort, but eventually you'll start loving the new version of yourself. There's no going back. So I've seen people who find it difficult to say no. Now they're happily saying no without being impolite, right? So now here we come to an end. So before we conclude today's session, I also want to take a few moments to walk all of you through how you can continue your emotional well-being journey through this positivity platform. So let me reshare my screen with you. So this is the positivity platform main screen. If you scroll down in the psychologist, this is my profile. You can click on book now. These are my certifications and a brief introduction to my work and my certifications, the therapies that I offer, my areas of expertise, right? So you can go through this and book a session with me. because healing is again not a one day webinar, I would say. Awareness begins here, but emotional growth happens through consistency, reflection, support, and safe spaces. So one of the most beautiful things about this platform is that it brings mental health conversations closer to people in a much more approachable and accessible way. So if today's session resonated with you, I would genuinely encourage you not to stop at just listening. Take the next step for yourself. Through this platform, you can, emotionally like explore mental health and emotional well-being resources. You can attend more webinars and awareness sessions. You can access guided support, learn about different psychological topics, and connect with professionals from for deeper understanding and healing. And if you personally connected with today's topic or feel that some of these emotional patterns resonated with your own experiences, you can also connect with me through the platform. So, whether it is emotional struggles, relationship patterns, overthinking, anxiety, boundary setting, attachment issues, or self worth, or simply understanding yourself better emotionally, you do not have to figure everything out alone. Sometimes even one emotionally safe conversation can create meaningful clarity. So you can reach out through my profile or a session section on the platform, where you'll be able to learn about my work. You can book sessions. You can even attend work, read the blogs and articles that the psychologists and therapists have beautifully written. And you can continue this journey in a more personalized and supportive way if needed. And I really want to say this before we end, that seeking help is not weakness. Self awareness is actually strength. So choose healing. It is strength, and even being present in conversation like these today is already a step towards emotional growth. So make sure you go through the Positivity's Instagram page for the notification for the upcoming webinars that are there. And thank you so much, everyone, for being such a warm, thoughtful, and emotionally present audience. Thank you so much for listening so warmly. Take care of yourself.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much, ma'am, for this wonderful session. And thank you, everyone, for joining this webinar. And you can start your mental health journey with positivity.